something that seems to come up a lot in conversations with a lot of my male friends is this struggle with dating recently, where it seems like it's been really hard for men to have success dating, whether they're on the apps or not. Just universally, it's been challenging.
Mm.
What do you notice or feel that is actually creating like all this challenge for men when it comes to dating right now?
I feel it's the disconnection that most men have from what it means to actually be a man. And most men think that masculinity is a skill to develop or something to learn, but it's actually the byproduct of us cultivating a relationship with our grief and healing and reclaiming the little boy and the younger parts of us, and being in community, in brotherhood. Now, the safe man is the byproduct of all of those things. It's masculinity, safe masculinity is not a skill to develop, right? It's not this, it's not a game of pickup artistry or like these power dynamics of, you know, when I'm more in the masculine, she's more in the fem. It's actually, it's not so much about that, and it's more so about your presence. Now, what prevents a man being in that state of being within himself is his inability to feel his pain and go into the depths of himself. And the way I've seen dating and navigating dating is, as we were speaking about before, it's this like interwoven dance of being in relationship with your grief. And reason being is because in order for us to walk through the world with an open heart and to open our heart to a potential partnership and to really connect with someone on a deep level, it's not just surface level, you must also be willing to grieve as well. And you must have also felt the grief and the emotions that keep men stuck at a surface level. In the hero's journey, so in Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, there's the separation from the ordinary world, and there's a separation when we descend into the unknown world of our pain, of our suffering. And a man must be willing and have the courage and have the support to descend into the cave of his grief, of his loneliness, of his childhood, to be able to walk through the world with an open heart. And I believe the biggest struggle and the biggest issue today is that as a society, we are so disconnected from our grief. And having spaces where we can be in our grieving process and for us to be in the relationship with our grief so we can walk through the world with an open heart. And we've become so disconnected as a society because of this lack of ritual that's been part of society and communities for thousands and thousands of years. And we've become so disconnected from it, and now we're starting to see that in relating, right? Because it's and there's so much more to be said here around when we grow up and we have this healthy space and this safe space for us to build a relationship with our grief and be in that process and be in healthy community. We go through our initial rites of passage and initiation from boy to man. And because we haven't had this, majority of men are walking through life as little boys because they haven't actually transmuted and alchemized that immature energy and that immature consciousness of this little boy. And that process hasn't happened. So even though they might be a 40-year-old man, emotionally, energetically, spiritually, they're still operating from these early stages of maturity and consciousness. And that's the biggest issue that I see today. And yeah.
So if I was to think about my own life, And if I was to say, if I had any reason to have an inability to process grief, it would be likely because as a kid or as a young man, it almost felt like it wasn't manly to process grief. Like, no, you don't cry. Boys don't cry. That's what you were always told. Is that where this stems from? Is as children, as men, we're almost taught grieving is weakness and we've just carried it? Is that what I'm hearing?
So the way I see grief is, and the reason I speak about it so much is because it's our body's natural process of processing emotion. It's our body's natural process of feeling and processing what needs to be felt in that moment or in that season. And when we don't have the space to process that emotion, we don't have the safe space to feel what's seeking to be felt, we hold on to it and we store it in the body, right? Emotion is just energy in motion. It wants to move freely. And how we move that is through breath, is through sound, and through movement. And when we don't have that safety in children to have this safe, loving presence to reflect back to us that our emotional experience is welcome, that it's valid, and that it's actually safe to feel what you're feeling, and what you're feeling is real, we don't learn how to actually feel our emotions. And especially as men, like, through how, society slowly shaped itself over the years, it's like, men are supposed to hold it all together. And I think a lot of us have experienced fathers who felt that they had to hold it all together because of maybe the lack of safety that they had as little boys. And this is where generational trauma is passed down. And it's not like, trauma is not necessarily like abuse or what we know abuse to be today, which is like real emotional, physical abuse. Sometimes abuse, and we have to call it what it is for us to actually acknowledge it. Sometimes abuse is not having a parent who's emotionally attuned to how you're feeling in childhood and therefore unable to reflect back to you this sense of safety for you to feel what's alive in your body. And when we don't have that safety, we store that emotion. We stay stuck and frozen in that period of time. So, for example, my family migrated from South Africa to Australia. So I was born in Johannesburg, South Africa, and I was very lucky and grateful that my family, mum and dad, brought us to Australia for us to have the childhood that they didn't have. And when we came to Australia, it was that real immigrant mentality of like doing at all costs, like to make this work, to make this happen. So dad worked and worked and worked and worked, and mum tried to hold it all together. And based on their wounds and their trauma, they were so emotionally disconnected from themselves. They weren't attuned to what we needed. Then they separated, they divorced. And within that, me as a little boy was this child who didn't have the attunement that he needed to feel safe in what he was processing and what he was feeling. And this is where I explain and I teach all the men that I work with that the wounded inner child is where we've disconnected from ourselves in childhood because we didn't have our needs met, or our parents weren't attuned to us, or we experienced trauma or emotional abuse or whatever it was. And because as humans, it's more important for us to survive, to get our needs met. It's more important for us to be loved and liked and accepted and to fit into the family system, that we would rather disconnect from our own soul and become whoever we need to be in order to fit into the family system. So at the youngest age, I abandoned myself. I abandoned my heart, my soul. I stopped being my expressed self. I stopped asking questions, and I slowly started to become whoever I needed to be to make sure mum and dad were happy. And in that, I started to be and become the emotional support system for them in a way. Then I was in the middle of their divorce. And this separation that happens is what leaves a hole in our soul. And I left a hole in my soul where I walked through life for the rest of my life with this deep sense of loneliness and emptiness and this void that I had been seeking and had been seeking to try and fill with women, with work, with making money, with success, all of this stuff. When I would feel that loneliness, or I'd feel overwhelmed, or I didn't know what to do with my emotional experience because I hadn't cultivated those strengths in childhood. And the only way I knew how to deal with my emotions to make myself feel better, which was leaning on a relationship, which was scrolling on social media, which was working, which was training even harder in the gym, right? These were all the ways that I felt a sense of, I felt good about myself. But all of it was this incessant need to try and fill that void, that hole in my soul, where I disconnected and abandoned my soul from the earliest age because I didn't have that safety. And yeah, a lot of the issues we see today in masculinity and society is based on the wounded inner child. And that's why I'm so passionate about this.
I love the passion, and I love the way you walk through how it was created for you, because I think that would help a lot of people understand. Because the thing that comes up for me is, how do you know if you, in your words, have a hole in your soul from something that happened as a child or some way you were emotionally abandoned? Or yeah, I guess, like, what are the signs that you kind of are lacking this completeness and that you're actually searching for external satisfaction, external joy?
Great question. I didn't know this until it was revealed right in front of my face. And another reason I'm so passionate about sharing this message and sharing this work is because it doesn't have to get to that point. I was in a relationship with a woman that I had committed my entire soul to, and I gave everything, every part of me I gave to that relationship. And she left me. And when she left me, I started to see right in front of my face that she was the love that I'd been searching for my entire life, that I didn't get from my family, that I didn't get from my father, or the emotional love and support that I needed as a little boy. That unresolved wound, because that's a wound, that unresolved wound then controlled my entire life, where, and this is where people who've experienced some of the deepest trauma or some of the deepest loneliness from the lack of emotional connection that they didn't receive in their family system, a lot of them are very successful today. And the reason why some of the most successful people in the world are some of the most traumatized is because they've become really good at being visionaries. And reason being is because as a child, they got so good at projecting into the future of this potential future and feeling of happiness that they would eventually feel one day in this relationship, to avoid the loneliness and the discomfort of the present moment. And then that's why when they get the relationship, it never feels enough, right? And you will struggle to be truly present to the love that this person is actually giving you, because you'll be so focused on avoiding the pain of the moment, of the present moment. So until you can become present with your emotional experience in the moment and fully be with it, right? This is where we continue to project into the future, this ideal future, to one day feel, a sense of whole and completeness. So that was me, from my entire life. It was, all I can remember was I just imagining this perfect relationship that would just fix and solve everything for me. And then when I got it, I felt even more alone in that relationship, because it was reflecting back to me. It was this mirror right in front of my face of the loneliness I'd felt my entire life. But then I was looking into this empty mirror because it wasn't the relationship. It was the loneliness of my childhood that I hadn't actually reclaimed and felt and acknowledged. And so when she left me, she also left me with no other option but for me to look at myself and take a really hard look at myself. And that was me stepping through the initiation of filling the hole in my soul and coming back home to myself. What that looks like is coming back home to the little boy who had been seeking my attention, my love, my entire life, that I thought would come from something outside of me. Yeah.
Yeah. Relationships tend to do that for us. They open up a portal into just a wildly different experience, just things that we just never even knew existed. They've always been inside of us. We just didn't know that they were there. So if you were to think, if anyone's to think about, okay, the love I receive from this woman, or that I'm looking for, that I'm searching for, my partner, is the way to think about it, the love that I'm seeking is the way that I should be loving myself?
I think it's important to note that as humans, we are wired for connection and we're wired to be in relationship. So there is a healthy level of wanting to be in relationship, of wanting to be loved by someone, of wanting to be responsible for someone other than yourself as well. But when we need that as if it's a hit of oxygen, that's the problem. When I would get into a relationship, or if I had a woman message me, it'd be like, fuck, I can breathe again. I can go about my day again.
Yes.
When it comes to anxious attachment, there's this video that you can look up on YouTube, and it's called the still face experiment. And it's where, and this explains the attachment system that develops in childhood, where the mother would enter the room, she'd be present, she'd be playing with the child, and the child's happy, the child's attuned, the child's also curious as to what's happening around. It's safe to be curious, right? It's safe to be itself. Then she turns around, right? And then she looks back at the child and she's got no expression on her face. She's like no one's home. And eventually this child starts looking around curious, and then notices that mum's not available. And this child starts to get a little bit like anxious and agitated, and touches mum's face and looks around and yells and then screams and then cries and then becomes hysterical, and then eventually goes into a state of like freeze or shutdown where it just dissociates. It's actually really sad to see. And that is how attachment is developed, right? So think of that. If your parent lacks the emotional attunement to what you're needing for you to feel safe, because as children, we're looking into the nervous system of our parent to reflect back to us that we're safe. Think of when you're on an airplane and there's turbulence, you look to the air hostess to reflect back to you that you're safe, right? That's a natural system that we have, right, of attachment. So when we don't have that attunement, we are constantly stuck in this state of seeking that from a relationship for the rest of our life. And coming back to that experiment, if that child if that mother disappears and walks away and leaves that child on its own, it will die. So the other option is death. If this parent's not available, it's death. And that over a period of time is emotional abuse that turns into a deep developmental wound, trauma that we carry through our entire life. And what we know about trauma is until we go and create safety for that wound to be reclaimed and felt and healed, no matter what age, even from infancy, our body remembers. How do we know it remembers? We get triggered in relationship when our partner pulls away. It remembers, right? We need that hit of oxygen to have that woman or that man message us, and we're like, oh, okay, I feel good now. And take note, now I can be curious about the world again because I feel safe. So this is where men, they finally have this woman giving them attention, and then they feel safe enough to actually start being themselves again.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're not getting it, it disrupts your attachment, and they go, holy fuck, I just need the next hit of oxygen so I can breathe again and feel safe in my own nervous system. And this was me for the longest time.
So many men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Men. So we're wired for attachment, right? So it's important that we really acknowledge that. And there's a healthy level of relationship, and it's called interdependence. And it's the ability to rely and depend on someone emotionally while also being sovereign in yourself at the same time. But when a man is operating from this wounded little boy, this unresolved developmental trauma, he won't be able to be sovereign. So he will just be dependent. Or to avoid that pain, because we do everything in our power to avoid pain as humans. To avoid that pain, he becomes a high-performing, high-achieving man who avoids opening his heart fully for the potential grief and loneliness and the world of pain he's been carrying his entire life. So he becomes avoidant, closed off, shut off, and he just works. So this is where and why how we heal is through grief, is through reclaiming our childhood, grieving our childhood, and also the entire life that we've built upon the foundation of that wounded inner child, the pain we've caused other people, the sadness of walking through your entire life with a closed heart and not allowing yourself to be your full self and open. And yeah, man, so grief is the portal to the healing. But yeah, hopefully that gives some context of I can't even remember your question, but
it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
That was great. How do you know because when you're saying certain things, I'm like, okay, I'm reflecting on myself, and I'm like, okay, well, where am I at? And the one thing that I think I'm struggling a little bit within myself when I hear you kind of explain some of this is I am an extremely high achiever and performer. I work, 14 to 16 hours a day, most of the days. And I've had very securely attached relationships. I don't really get anxiously attached. And so, but the way you're kind of explaining this, I'm like, well, shit, am I? Or am I just deceiving myself? So how do I as a man understand if I'm in a healthy balance where I actually feel very secure in myself and I feel very secure when I date a woman and I have very high standards for how I perform in the world, both in the work, in the gym, and basically everything I do. So how do I know if it's like a healthy balance or if I'm kind of like deflecting?
Yeah. Incredible question. First of all, it's very easy to be secure in yourself when you're single.
That's so true.
Because you don't have this fucking mirror right in front of you reflecting back to you the little boy and the unresolved wounding. So it's so easy to feel that you're secure on your own, and then you get into a relationship with a woman who has depth and who reflects back to you your truth. And it's, are you willing to accept that invitation, that reflection, and deepen into yourself? Now, it's about just being curious. It's about being curious and starting to approach, because we all have grief, right? If you have a heart, if you have love, right? You have grief, unresolved grief. And it's about being curious as to the parts of you that come up when you're in relationship. So, yeah, I mean, we've all got trauma, whether we know it or not. And all roads lead back to childhood. And a deep relationship has been one of the deepest spiritual practices and experiences, and a deep relationship with a woman or with a person that you're willing to go to those depths with will bring things up within you. But the thing is, a lot of people also just stay surface level as well in partnership, and I've experienced a relationship that I've experienced many relationships where it has been a depth. It's revealed a depth within me that I never thought was possible. And in the revealing of that was always, every single time, a deeper part of myself to meet. But there was always this threshold. So in the hero's journey, we have a calling to adventure. So you can accept the calling to cross the threshold into the unknown world and step into the cave and fucking feel and deepen into yourself, right? Or you can notice the calling and not accept it and continue to play in the familiar world. So those who are willing to accept the calling are those who really meet the depth of themselves and experience the fullness of love and life. And that's why, in order to love fully and to be walking through life with an open heart and to go to the depths with someone, you must also be willing to enter that cave and step through that cave and to be in relationship with it all the time. So I don't know. Without us turning this into a coaching session, I don't know. But it just, it has to be approached with a level of curiosity. Yeah. Like what's the calling? Wherever the calling's been, where have I not accepted the calling? And maybe what's the calling now, right? What's the calling to really deepen into myself as a man now? As I shared, the ego will do everything to avoid feeling pain. So sometimes we create this like self-fulfilling identity where we stay in bargaining, when we stay in denial and bargaining, and we just stay in this loop of like, no, I'm good. I'm solid in myself, right? And then we bargain our way around it. Oh, I've done enough work. I've been there before. I've felt that. Yeah. And then we experience anger and frustration. And if someone says they're not an angry person, I would ask you, where do you feel easily frustrated or moody or irritable, right? And when we look at the stages of grief, these are the first three: denial, bargaining, anger. Anger is the threshold to cross that threshold and enter into the cave of your grief. But most people stay stuck in the first three: denial, bargaining, and anger, and they loop. And they stay in this ego, which keeps them surface level in their life and keeps them attracting the same people, experiencing the same relationships, and just in this cycle. They experience cycles and patterns through the anger, through the irritability, the frustration, the moodiness, the subtle callings. Right, that's the calling into the cave of our deepest pain, and only the courageous will step through that.
Yeah, I love that framing of. God, what were your words? It was you stay at like your comfort level, or you kind of like enter the adventure, or like you accept the calling for the adventure. I notice in my own life, I'm very good at that when it comes to work. As soon as something becomes comfortable in work, I'm like, where can I go that I've never been? I just instantly go there, and I'm like, I want to go on the next adventure. What can we do that makes it easier or more comfortable for us to accept the calling?
The calling is, if we look at it from the point of when there's a part of us that is about to be initiated into a deeper state of consciousness or a more mature energy, we start to become interested in different things. Now, when it comes to the initiation, an initiation is it is a death of something. So there's a level of sacrifice when it comes to an initiation.
I fucking love that.
Yeah. And there's a level of pain, suffering, hurt, a death, right? In order for this new version of you to be reborn, or for this man to be reborn, the old version of you must die. And there's pain in that. There's a grieving process in that. See, like, it's just always coming back to the process of grief. Yeah. But I don't know of any initiation that's comfortable. And I would rather choose the hard and climb the mountain and accept those callings to initiation and do the hard than do what's easy. Because I know the hard will lead you to the top of the mountain and you'll look back and you go, wow, like, I'm proud of myself because that was fucking hard and I chose the hard every time. Not from a place of putting yourself through suffering for no reason, but you chose truth. And truth typically goes against everything the ego wants. And that's the hardest thing sometimes. So sometimes the ego wants to do all of these things, all of this stuff, right? And sometimes the initiation is staying on the course and being bored and finding a deeper capacity within yourself in the mundane. And that's where I've noticed that the mature man has really awakened within me. Is I know that the boy likes play. The boy likes spontaneity. The boy likes variety. The boy wants to go and do all of these things, experience all these things, but there needs to be a level of containment. It's like, hey, I've got you. Like, we get to play. It gets to be that expression. Right now, I've got you. And you're going to sit in the passenger seat. Yeah. And the man's going to drive. Yeah. There's been so many times where I could do all of these things. Yeah. And instead, I'm just like, how can I deepen more into this one thing? And I see that in relationship too. That's the way I see partnership and relationship is like, you can have all of these different things and just stay surface level with all of these things, or you can go deep with the one thing. And whether that's relationship or business, that's just my view of the calling to adventure, to really meet a deeper part of yourself, is the willingness to go deep with one thing. Yeah. That's just my view and perspective. Yeah.
I love that. And I think, Alex Hormozy talks about this a little bit, where it's, and I'm sure a lot of other people do too, but it's the ability to do the same thing for 20 years. Those are the ones who win, which is wild. And when we think about that, we're like, no. But at the same time, those are the ones who win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's aligned with your truth, that is.
Yes.
So it's also working with the emerging truth. This is where one of the deepest initiations that I've ever walked, and probably the most profound spiritual journey I've ever gone on, was going from working in construction, something that I could never see myself working 10 years in. And so when we look at the hero's journey, there's this separation from what's familiar and what's comfortable. I left a career where I was making 6 figures, 21 years old, managing multi-million-dollar construction sites. Like, we're doing big stuff. I was starting to put on a team. Like, yeah, I know and I knew in my gut that this was destroying my soul. This was perpetuating that hole in my soul. And I got to a point where I just became so depressed and I felt so alone and so empty. I needed relationship even more to fulfill that. I needed my habits. I needed to work even more to fill that. I need to make even more money to fill that. And the initiation in that was to listen to my gut and what my gut wanted and what I already knew. Went against everything my ego wanted. 21 years old, making six figures. I had to leave what was comfortable and what was familiar and enter the cave. And that was a 5-year journey and a 5-year process. And it was fucking painful and it was challenging and it was tough and it was difficult. But the deepest spiritual journey I've ever been on was listening to my gut, listening to my soul, and spending 5 years cultivating a life that's revolved around my soul's mission and my soul's purpose, which is helping and serving humanity, helping men become the absolute best version of themselves. Now I'm in this, I'm like, yeah, now I see this being generational, right? How deep can I go into this one thing? How much impact can I create from this place, from my soul, from my heart, right? But like that was such a fucking journey to go on. And yeah, man. So can you see like the the journey from boy to man in that? The boy who was fixated on money and status and, you know, building beautiful homes and doing all of this stuff. And that ladder I had my ladder up that wall, but it was actually this little boy who put that ladder up that wall. This little boy who thought that at the top of that ladder, he would get dad's love and approval. Mm. Yeah. And a lot of men spend their entire life climbing that ladder and they get to the top and they realize dad's not there. And they go, oh, fuck. Why did I do this? What was this all for? Because I've made enough money to know that money doesn't fucking matter. It does not matter.
Yeah.
If you are disconnected from your soul, no matter how much money, no matter what number it is, it does not fucking matter. I've worked with men who are worth $500 million and they've lost themselves completely in their relationship and in their life after they sold their company. I experienced that when I was young, when I climbed that ladder and I was like, hold up, this doesn't feel right. And I'm grateful that I accepted that calling. It's never going to be the right time. Initiation never comes at the right time. And it took for me to really have the courage to accept that calling, come back down the ladder and put my ladder up the right wall. Yeah. So that's been the deepest initiation from boy to man for me, is building a life of mission.
Yeah.
Of real mission from like my truth, not from the wounded ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for every man that hears that, where do we start? Where do we start? We're like, we know in our gut, we felt it in our gut. We're definitely not doing the right thing. Mm. What's like a good actionable first step just to start to kind of maybe even be willing to take one step down the rung of the ladder and just get a little bit closer to moving your ladder?
Yeah. There is a season for everything. And that might not be the season for a man right now. Because what I know through this healing work and healing our childhood and working with childhood trauma is that when we're in a state of survival, we can't think about the vision of a future, right? We can't think about a year from now. We're thinking about this moment, getting our needs met and surviving. When you're running from the tiger or from the lion, right? You don't stop to go, what would I like to do, right? You're fucking running.
Yeah.
So at first we have to stop running from the lion and come back home to ourselves first, or begin to come back home to ourselves before we really start sitting with our deeper truth of how is it that I really want to cultivate mission in my life, right? There's a hierarchy of needs and safety is first, right? Before self-actualization. So there needs to be that sense of safety first. And what I would suggest in that is, if someone's listening to this, this is a calling. If anything triggers you listening to this, that is your calling. And you can accept it now from a place of inspiration and aspiration, or you can wait until it hits you in the fucking face, or you can wait until it becomes painful, until your world starts crumbling around you. So that initiation, listening to that, and a man starting to become aware of like, okay, there's some stuff here for me to figure out. Environment. Men getting around the right men. If a man continues to hang around boys, he will forever be a boy. When a man is still operating from the consciousness of a boy, but he starts hanging around men, right? It's a matter of time before he starts walking that path too and healing the parts of him that are preventing him from being that man. Your environment will far outweigh your willpower, right? I know even today, if I place myself in an environment with boys that just spoke surface level, which I could not, I would probably eventually become one.
Yeah.
I would regress back to that state of consciousness. As humans, it's more important for us to fit in and be liked and accepted. So why not place yourself in environments of people who inspire you, people who have relationships that inspire you, who have work like careers that inspire you, and how can you get around those people more? And that's where things shifted for me. That's exactly what I did. I was a carpenter. I was in construction. I was very lonely. I had a very great friend group, but it was like everyone was on their own island, right? And I knew, because I'd started listening to podcasts and reading books, I knew that if I wanted to change my life, I need to start getting around people who are living the life that I actually want to live. So what I did was, I was 20 or 21 years old, and I booked a VIP ticket to sit front row at a personal development event. I asked about 5 people of my friends who would want to come with me. They all said no, and it was the scariest shit ever. But I knew that where are the people that I want to be around? Where are they going to be? I'm going to go there. And where are they going to be? They're going to be sitting front row in the VIP section. So I got a VIP ticket, I sat front row, and I was with my notepad, pen, ready to go. Who sat next to me is one of my closest brothers today. Yeah. And he completely changed my life. He was young, I built a multiple 6-figure business, traveling the world with his partner, and living this life that was so deeply inspiring to me. And we've been very, very, very close brothers ever since then. He's doing big things in the world, and now I'm doing big things in the world, because we surrounded ourselves, and we both understood the reason he was there for the exact same reason. It turns out he used to be a carpenter too, right? And we got on like a house on fire, man. And that was the beginning to a whole new life. Yeah. So environment, and through that was, it didn't stop there. It was constantly investing, going to events, meeting people, investing in being in brotherhood communities, and investing my time, energy, and money in being around the right people, until I became someone where the people, and there's been a lot of my closest friends today, I've actually invested in being in their spaces before, right? I was once a student of theirs, and now they're in my inner circle, and we're best friends. And when I'm going through some shit and there's things coming up for me, they're the first people I call, and they hold me and they support me, and they call me when they're going through shit, and I hold and support them. So environment is the absolute beginning to being supported in that journey of, first of all, being around the right people where it's normal. Like, this work is familiar, it's normal. And yeah, look, I could say you could do this practice and that practice and, do this kind of healing, but man, nothing will heal you more than being in the right community.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being around the right people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where Austin's been a godsend in a lot of ways. The community here is quite incredible. The men here are actually quite incredible. They're all very grounded and just if you're in the right circles, but a lot of good men. I was talking to a friend the other day, and I love that in my circle of male friends in particular that I'm going to reference here. In my circle of male friends, it is normal for us to say, I want to be the best in the world at this thing. That is just a normal statement of like, whenever we pick up to do something, it is, I want to create something that's world class and I want to be one of the best in the world at this. That is fucking wild to me that is a normal conversation amongst people.
Yeah. I love that. And I want to, me personally, I want to be around the conversation where it's I'm going to be the best in the world at this thing. And also, how's your heart?
Yeah.
I got brothers that call me and they're like, hey, bro, but before we chat about business and before we chat about the success, and by the way, I want to celebrate the fuck out of you. How's your heart? How are you feeling? Beyond all of that, how are you as a bro? We check in and then it's, fuck yeah, what's going on?
Oh, yeah. I love that because I don't think that's a thing that men talk about enough with each other. We don't ask, how's your heart? How are you? How are you truly? And we're often not asked that by women either. So we're sometimes can kind of be, maybe the feeling can be like we have to figure it out on our own, I think, for a lot of men. And that's where...
That can be definitely a story for a lot of men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does a man... So you're talking about environment, and then we have this story where, hey, I have to figure this all out on my own. And, to your point, environment's the most important thing. So you have brothers that you can talk to about these things, that you have this. So I would imagine a lot of men who don't have brotherhood yet would say, well, I can't step into the environment that I want to be in because then I'm kind of like the person that has nothing to give. And I'm just looking at that environment to kind of grab from it and for them to pull me up. How would a man kind of embrace that and just say like, yeah, that's where I'm at?
Great question. I knew that if I want to have an inner circle of high value men, not high value in the sense of like just wealth and success and, doing big things in the world, but also their depth that they've met themselves. I understood that for me to be and have an inner circle like that, I must first become that. So yes, there was this journey. There was this journey of me meeting deeper parts of myself, me investing in being in those spaces and communities, and understanding that there's a season of me cultivating and becoming a man of value, that I can add value to these communities, right? And that's where, and it doesn't have to be that as well. It's like you guys can. It's also meeting guys where they're at as well and building that together. Some of these guys I have today, for example, like one of my closest bros, Morgan, like right now I'm kind of jealous. He's in Australia. He's running one of the largest entrepreneur events in Australia right now, like happening right now. He's got like 1,000 people in the room, and it's a fucking party for like 3 days. It's crazy. And I saw it on social media this morning. I just had maybe a bit emotional. I was like, wow, I remember when we were sitting in the lounge room together, when we were living together, and he's like, one day I'm going to create an event where it's just going to be like this fucking celebration each year of just entrepreneurs coming together. There'll be DJs, there'll be this, there'll be that. We're sitting in our lounge room, and he's only making, I don't know, probably a few grand a month sort of thing. Probably maybe like 10 grand a month. Like he was doing okay, but like and it's been a come up. So it's like, how can you find those people and meet them where they're at now and build together? It's like, and there's been nothing more incredible than being on the come up with some of my bros and continuing to be on the come up with some of them, right? And Yeah, and I think it's also important of being a man of value instead of being someone who is like leeching from, like, I want to be your friend so I can get something from you, right? Yeah, there needs to be that level of yeah, like just real friendship, like yeah. And look, it took me a while to create, yeah, and I grew up my entire life with this story that I have to do it on my own. And that no matter what, you'll always be alone. When my parents divorced and separated, as a little boy, I was in the middle of not only the lack of emotional attunement that I didn't receive from them, but I was now in the middle of our family unit being broken up, right? In childhood, we come from a family system, and the heart of that system, the beating heart of your family system, is a relationship between mum and dad. So when they separated and when they broke, it broke the family. It broke the flow of love in the family. And as a little boy, that was extremely traumatic for me, especially me not being held in the way that I needed to feel safe in that. Where in a way, I actually became the emotional support system for both of them. But in that, I developed this story because we are meaning-making machines as children. I couldn't comprehend the pain that I was experiencing, so I created this story and belief that no matter what, the people you love most, it's a matter of time before they leave you. So I walked through my life, my entire life as a man, avoiding opening my heart to friendships, to relationships, or trusting love, trusting relationships because of this belief and this unresolved pain of it's a matter of time before the people you love most leave you or abandon you or betray you. So that kept me isolated my entire life. Because why would I want to go and put myself in an environment or in a situation or in community or go to a fucking personal development event where I can be in a room of 200 people and still feel alone and have the potential of connecting and meeting with someone that's going to eventually leave me anyway.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's a matter of time. Why would I do that? So it's easier for me to just stay in my bedroom. So I spent a lot of time in my bedroom as a child. And as a young adult, a lot of time behind my laptop, working or on a job site, isolating. And if I can cultivate the community and the brotherhood and the connections that I have today coming from that, anyone can do it. Yeah. Anyone can do it. Yes, it took me years, right? And so I just share that from the place of if someone's like, yeah, it's easy for you to say, you have this following, you have all of this. No, no. If you knew who I was 8 to 10 years ago, you'd be dumbfounded, right? I didn't leave my bedroom. I did everything on my own. I think I had like 2 friends. I was constantly on my own through school. I never felt like I fit in, all because of this belief and this trauma that I experienced. So yeah, I share that because environment's so powerful and so important. It's community's everything. And like people who self-isolate there's a reason. And it's typically because you're avoiding the loneliness that comes up within you when you're in relationship, in community. Yeah.
You said this thing that I loved and that I think we always need to be reminded of is when you talked about how to enter a room where maybe you didn't know anybody or you were trying to build brotherhood. It was, I needed to be a man of high value and I needed to become that man. And I think that comes back a lot in dating where men want this woman that they believe is like the best woman in the world. They love her to death. She's a high caliber woman. She's everything they've ever dreamed of. And it's like, are you a man that deserves that woman? Like, have you become a man so If you become such a great high value man that you actually deserve that woman. And I think a lot of men don't do the work to become that man. And then there's this disconnect of like, why can't I have this woman? It's like, well, you haven't become somebody that deserves her yet. Is that something that comes up? How do you think about that?
Yeah. I feel that, this is like one of the biggest issues that I see amongst men is that they think being a high value man is having these high value skill sets or a certain amount of money or status. Yes, that's important because it'll give him this sense of comfort and this sense of stability in no matter what, I know I can take care of you. But the highest value that a woman is actually seeking and craving from a man is his presence, is his heart. That's I believe, the greatest currency that we can have today is how present can you be? And how present you can be is based on how much have you dealt with your childhood. Because a little boy can't be present. When a man is operating from the consciousness of the little boy, he can't be present. Because he's so constantly worried about what's going to happen in the future. He's worried about his business. He's worried about this relationship. He's living in such a state of anxiousness and anxiety, projecting this fear into the future based on what happened in the past. So he's never living in the present because he's constantly worried about the future based on what happened in the past. So the greatest currency a man can have is his presence and his heart. Having both of those is a rare man. Yeah. And I feel a lot of men are confusing what it means to be a high value man. And it's very interesting. Real high value men don't call themselves high value men.
I love that. You just know it.
They just are.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just are.
Yeah. It's often the statement of like it's going to be like bad terminology, but the biggest alpha in the room is usually the one that you would never realize because they don't need to be the alpha. They just are.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. There's this big men's event in Australia that I'm one of the lead facilitators at. And there's this process called Awaken the Warrior. And basically, so there's 200 men and we battle. So we're off in pods, we're off in like in our own circles, and it's a fight to the death. Not actual physical fight, but it's a wrestle. It's you got to pin this man on his back or you got to push him out of the circle.
Damn.
Right? And it's you find the winners in each pod and then the pods versus each other, and then it gets the grand finale of the end. It's like who is the warrior? Right? Find the warrior, right?
Oh yeah.
And what it is, it'll be these two guys in the middle of the arena, and there'll be a couple hundred of us around them, just going fucking crazy, drums, everything, like just going nuts. And it's like it's time to find out who the warrior is. The guy who won it was not only the smallest, but the quietest. Right? And I see that today as like the high value man is typically the one that he doesn't have to show it. He just is. Right? Because if you are, you don't have to prove it. And if you have to prove it, typically it's this little boy that's like, look at me. And that's the difference, right? So, for example, there's a lot of little boys walking around in the gym that look very big. Yeah, I see right through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all I see is this hurting heart that sometimes I just want to hold. Yeah, and sometimes at our retreats and our events, some of these big guys will come in. Beneath that is just a little boy. And every time they'll be at some point, some stage, they'll be curled up in a fetal position as this little boy just sobbing.
Yeah.
And the muscles and this mask, this need to be seen. Beneath that is just this boy. It's just like wanting to be seen, needing to be seen because he's stuck in a state of survival. Yeah.
What's the giveaway at the gym? Is it just an energy?
Yes, it's a felt sense. So it's interesting when when you meet a deeper part of yourself, you will naturally see and feel someone who's also met themselves in that depth as well, right? If you haven't, you won't be able to see it or feel it. It's the same in dating a relationship. I can feel when a woman hasn't met, right? She's not embodied. She's not, she hasn't met the deeper part of herself. And I can feel when a woman has fucking gone there. Typically, she doesn't need to show it, right? So it's this felt sense. If you walk into a room and you just pause for a moment and go, let me just feel. Let me feel. I'm curious. I wonder where, he's at within himself or she's at within herself. And you can feel, and you can feel, I wonder who I feel is the most confident, right? And you feel, it's like, oh, there's just something about this guy over here. So it's a felt sense, right? I see a lot of men in the gym who are silent warriors, who are getting after it, and they're training, and it's from an integrated place. And then I see guys who walk around in the gym who it's you can see and feel from what place it's from. And not just the gym, right? But the gym has been a very great way for men to develop protection, this muscular armoring, right? To manipulate their body to avoid the emotion. And we will go to the extreme to avoid the emotion because it's survival, right? And a lot of men are driven by that survival, and that's why they're extremely fucking jacked. Yeah. Yeah. And it's what's really beautiful is when, as I shared before, it's like that, like the silent warrior. He goes in, he gets the job done, and it's not from this need to be seen, but it's from this connection that he has to himself. It's very big difference in energy. Yeah.
It's almost like you're honoring your body. You're honoring yourself as a man of like, this is how I want to treat myself as a man. That's the only reason I'm here.
Yeah. I went through this weird phase of, I grew up, racing motocross. That was a sport I did. So, I did that, and then I got into CrossFit, and then I got into, I always felt that I needed to perform in order to be seen by a woman, right? If I'm this CrossFit athlete or if I'm this motocross athlete, then that woman will see me, and you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And what I noticed was through my healing journey, and what happens through our healing journey is we start becoming less interested in certain things and less attracted to certain things. And I, for some reason, just stopped going to the gym. I just wasn't interested anymore. It's like this thing that I used to love and that my life was so revolved around. I was like, I'm just not interested anymore. I don't want to go to the gym. And I realized it was because when I was in such a state of survival, training for me was a way to be seen. Training for me was a way to look a certain way to get something from the world, or to be a certain way to get something from the world. And because I started to heal that wound, I just wasn't interested anymore. So I stopped training. And then I started to come to the realization, I was like, oh, okay. Now training gets to be from this sacred commitment, this embodiment to something that's greater than me. So now when I step into the gym and when I don't want to go to the gym and I'm like, no, you got to fucking go, like get your session in today. It's from a place of, I need to show up as the absolute best version of myself to be in service of the amount of men that I support on a daily and weekly basis. See, it's not about me. It's about the vision of what I'm creating. It's about the impact that I want to have on men in the world. So I go and train. I go and do the thing. Yeah. So there was this, through our healing journey, there'll be a shift in things. And as we deepen, things become of more depth and meaning. And we get to honor the sacredness of that deeper part that we meet. So, yeah.
Aligned. It's the same feeling I have for the gym, where it's an honor to myself and like the vision I have, and to be like the best version of me. This is a thing that just has to be in my life, not out of a need for performance or look at me. out of a way of like, no, this is just for me.
Yeah.
We're coming to the end.
Yeah.
What is the one question that a man should be asking himself right now?
Before the relationship, before the money, before the career, before all of that, who am I? At the deepest level. When I used to ask myself that question, I had no idea. If you were to describe yourself without saying what you do, without saying your hobbies, your interests, the things that you love most, right? How would you describe who you are at the deepest level? Yeah, that. And the truth in that can be a calling if you choose it to be. When I realized I couldn't answer that question, I started to notice how much my life was built upon the foundation of who I thought society or the people around me wanted or needed me to be. And the more I sat with that, the more I was with that, the more I came back to the little boy who abandoned himself, who needed to be anything other than himself in order to be loved. So my whole life was built upon this broken foundation of this boy who felt that who he was at his core was not good enough, was unworthy, and my presence alone is not enough, and I need to be something other than myself. That's what was at the end of that trailhead. And coming back home to myself, coming back home to the little boy within me, I started to remember who I am, which is this big love of curiosity and wonder for the world and passion. As you can hear, like I'm very passionate about, this work, having deep, meaningful conversations, passionate about relationship, about community, brotherhood. Like I fucking love it. And I dimmed that expression for a long time where I would just continuously question myself. So coming back to who am I at the deepest level, it's that fully expressed boy, right? That pure soul that was welcomed into this world as a fucking miracle. 1 in 400 trillion chances and exponentially growing, right? The chances of being born. And the fact that my soul chose this body at this point of time, there's something truly incredible about that. So coming back home to my soul and realizing who I am at the deepest core level, and then being able to integrate that as the man, where I don't need to fill this broken foundation or this void with meaningless distractions and shit. Right? I get to build a life of depth and meaning and purpose and mission. So that was what was at the end of that question for me. And it took me years to answer that. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much, Ryan. This was fucking gem of a conversation.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Thank you, bro.
All right. Thanks, brother.